The chamber of the Galactic War Council had never known silence like this. Not when the Kyran Horde declared extermination campaigns. Not when entire star systems were burned from the maps. Not even when empires fell. But today, silence stretched heavy and stunned. All because of a human. On the central dais, Admiral Elias Grant sat in full dress uniform, medals glinting under the crystalline lights. His weathered face was calm, his posture steady, but his hands cradled life. 2 Shurakai cubs, barely a few weeks old, nestled against his chest. Their downy fur was stained from war, their ribs visible from hunger. Grant held them as if they were his own, one arm supporting the fragile bodies, while the other guided a nutrient bottle to their muzzles. The suckling noises of the cubs echoed far too loud in the stunned chamber. The alien delegates, predators, warlords, merchants of blood, shifted uncomfortably in their seats. To them, Shurakai cubs were not innocents. They were seeds of future killers. Their species raised young in packs, training them to tear prey apart before they could walk upright. To see them nurtured like human children was a grotesque violation of expectation. High Strategos Beirik, towering in crimson war armor, rose to his feet with a snarl that reverberated across the chamber. His 4 tusks jutted forward, saliva glistening on them as his voice thundered. "Grant, what mockery is this? You dare bring my people's spawn here like trophies?" Grant didn't flinch. His voice was even, almost quiet, yet every delegate leaned forward to catch his words. "They are not trophies," he said. "They are children. And children should not pay the price for war." A ripple of disbelief spread. Councillor Thelen of the Serathi, a serpentine diplomat, hissed softly. "Children? Admiral, those creatures will grow into warriors, who will carve fleabuikire flesh espenadirae, from bone. You know this." Grant shifted 1 cub higher against his chest, the tiny creature burrowing closer into the warmth of his uniform. For a brief second, something softened in his eyes, an expression that no alien in that chamber could fully comprehend. "They will grow," Grant replied, "into what their elders make of them. That truth holds for every species in this room." A murmur rose, echoing like wind across steel walls. Disgust, unease, and something more dangerous. Curiosity. Vedic slammed a clawed fist onto the council table, cracking its obsidian surface. "You insult the honor of the Shurakai! To take our young, our bloodline, and feed them as though they are your pets? You soil this chamber with weakness!" Grant finally looked up, eyes locking onto the warlord's burning gaze. His voice remained calm, but it cut through the uproar like a blade. "Perhaps I remind this chamber that even your kind began life helpless." The words hung in the air. The cubs suckled quietly, the only sound in the chamber. One delegate, a shriveled Krolak elder, leaned toward his neighbor and whispered, "What weapon is this? Mercy? Compassion? It unsettles me more than their war fleets." Another hissed agreement. Grant did not argue further. He let silence work in his favor, stroking the downy fur of the cubs until their breathing slowed, until one tiny paw rested on the brass of his medal as if it belonged there. Finally, he spoke again, softer this time, but every translator carried the words into every ear. "If you cannot see why this matters, then you will never understand humanity." And with that, the chamber froze once more. The silence of the chamber clung like frost, but it didn't last. The War Council erupted into layered voices, growls, hisses, shrieks of outrage, translated into a cacophony of clashing tongues. Grant sat unmoved in the storm, the cubs nestled against him, as if he were carved from stone. He had expected this chaos. "Their bait!" one delegate spat, her translucent frill flaring crimson. "Weakness dressed as pity," sneered another. "Or worse, human deception." Grant let the storm rage, his silence drawing eyes back to him. Finally, when the uproar reached its peak, he spoke. His voice was not raised, yet the words fell like iron into water. "These cubs survived one of your attacks." The uproar faltered. The delegates turned toward him, uncertain. Grant adjusted the bottle in the smaller cub's mouth, its tiny throat working desperately to drink. 3 weeks ago, Shurakai raiders burned the colony of Kellen's Rest. Over 9,000 civilians slaughtered. Not soldiers. Families. I led the counterstrike. Strategos Veyric's tusks gleamed as his lips curled back. 9,000 vermin purged. Necessary culling. Grant's jaw tightened, but his tone remained even. Among the wreckage, my marines found 2 cubs, no older than days, abandoned, starving. He paused, letting the words land. My officers wanted to end them quickly. Soldiers argued they would only grow to become future killers. I gave another order. The council leaned forward, every translation device carrying the humans' words into waiting minds. I ordered they be kept alive, fed, carried through the firestorms under guard. My fleet made room in its medical base, room we could barely spare for our own wounded. I made space for them. A murmur rippled through the chamber, equal parts disbelief and horror. Veyric laughed, the sound like breaking bone. You cradled them as though they were your brood. You made your soldiers protect enemy spawn. For what? A show? Grant met his gaze. For proof. Proof of what, human? That we are not like you. The words cut, sharp and deliberate. Some delegates shifted uncomfortably, their instincts rebelling at such audacity. Others listened. Grant continued, voice measured but carrying steel beneath. You see mercy as weakness. But look at your own war effort. Endless slaughter. Entire generations culled to ash. And yet, here I stand, alive, with fleets intact. Humanity fights you, strategos, and we do not break. What does that say about who is truly strong? The cub in his arms let out a small whimper, nudging against his uniform. Grant gently stroked its head, not breaking eye contact with the warlord. Strength, Grant said softly, is not in how much you destroy. It's in what you choose to protect. The chamber stirred. Councillor Thelen coiled her serpentine body tighter, speaking with reluctant fascination. You would have us believe, Admiral, that compassion itself is your weapon? Not my weapon, Grant corrected. My people's nature. Veyric slammed the table again, tusks clashing audibly. Lies! You slaughter Shurakai warriors by the tens of thousands. You burn our fleets. You think hiding behind cubs makes you righteous? Grant's expression hardened, the softness gone for a moment. We do what we must in war. We defend our homes, our children. But unlike you, we know where the line is. Even in the bloodiest battles of Earth's history, we learned something you never did. Mercy builds legacies. Cruelty only leaves ruins. The chamber fell into tense silence again. Aliens whispered, some skeptical, others visibly shaken. A bulky delegate from the Krolak leaned forward, voice rasping. You risked your command's faith, Admiral. Did your soldiers not question your sanity? Grant gave a faint, humorless smile. They did. Some cursed my name. Others obeyed because they trusted me. But when they saw these cubs take a bottle instead of drawing blood, when they realized that their enemy could also be helpless, it changed them. They began to understand what they were fighting for. Not just survival, not vengeance, but a future where our children, and perhaps even yours, do not grow up in endless war. That landed harder than any threat. For a moment, no one spoke. The image of Shurakai Marines, savage and armored, juxtaposed with helpless cubs in a human admiral's arms, none could easily reconcile it. Veyric finally spat, fury dripping from every syllable. This council sees weakness. Your fleets will be crushed, and those cubs will grow teeth and claws to kill your kind. You cannot rewrite what they are. Grant tilted his head, studying the warlord. His reply was deliberate, calm, and devastating. Perhaps not, but humanity has a history of taming monsters. The chamber erupted again, but this time the tone was different. Fear, unease, speculation. A crystalline delegate whispered, voice trembling, "If they can turn Shurakai cubs into allies?" Another countered, fearful, "Or, if they are simply bold enough to try, what does that make them?" Grant said nothing further. He simply continued feeding the cubs, as though the uproar around him were irrelevant. His gamble had been cast. Whether they thought a humanity weak or terrifying, the council would not leave unchanged. And as the cubs finished their bottles, one of them let out a soft, contented chirp. The sound echoed unnaturally loud in the chamber of warlords. The air in the council chamber had grown sharp, like a blade drawn halfway from its sheath. Delegates shifted uneasily, each processing what they had just witnessed. Admiral Elias Grant sat unflinching, still holding the Shurakai cups as if they were his own grandchildren. The contrast was unbearable to the predators gathered here. Violence was familiar. Nurture was not. Strategos Veric's tusks gnashed as he leaned forward. His voice was a guttural snarl. "You cradle them today, human, but tomorrow they will slit your children's throats. This is not compassion. It is lunacy." Grant met his gaze without hesitation. "No. It's a choice. One you and your people have forgotten how to make." The insult landed hard. Veric's claws dug furrows into the obsidian table, sparks skittering off the polished surface. Several delegates recoiled, expecting violence. But before he could lash out further, Councillor Thelen slithered upright, her scaled body shimmering under the chamber lights, her forked tongue flicked in thought. Perhaps the human has a point. Dozens of alien eyes swiveled toward her. Thelen's voice was measured, contemplative. "For centuries, our wars have been endless. Retaliation breeds retaliation. The Shurakai slaughter worlds, the Serathi counter, the Krolak retaliate. And so the cycle repeats. Yet this Admiral demonstrates an alien concept. Restraint. He spares the helpless, even of his enemies. It unsettles us, yet should it not be examined?" Veric exploded, tusks flashing. "Examine a weakness, and it will consume you. The Shurakai endure, because we know mercy is a disease. It spreads. It infects judgment. It leads to ruin." Grant leaned forward, finally placing the cups gently onto a warmed cradle his aides had set beside him. His eyes locked on the warlord. "Mercy isn't a disease, Strategos. It's a doctrine. One you've never learned to wield." Gasp rippled through the chamber. Even some of the humans' rivals leaned in closer. Grant stood now, his uniform pristine despite the stains left by the cubs. His voice grew firmer, carrying through the chamber with the weight of history. "On Earth, we've known war longer than we've known peace. Entire nations once tore each other apart with fire and steel. We learned the cost. But do you know what defined the turning points? Not the bloodiest battles, not the strongest weapons. It was when victors chose mercy over annihilation. When conquerors decided to rebuild what they had broken. That is how civilizations endured." He paused, scanning the room. His gaze lingered on a crystalline delegate, whose people had nearly been wiped out centuries ago. When you only destroy, you inherit ashes. But when you protect, even those who cannot protect themselves, you inherit loyalty, respect, and something far stronger than fear. Trust. The chamber was silent, every delegate caught in the net of his words. Veric roared, breaking the spell. "You speak of trust? Trust your enemies and you will be gutted in your sleep. This is why humanity will fall. You think sentiment is a strength. I will prove otherwise on the battlefield." Grant's expression hardened. "And that is why you keep losing to us." The words detonated like a plasma charge. Delegates murmured in shock, some stifling their surprise, others openly intrigued. Veric froze, tusks trembling with rage. "You dare!" "I dare because it's true." Grant cut him off, voice calm but sharp. "Your fleets outnumber ours. Your soldiers are raised from birth to kill. Yet time and again, you failed to break us. Why? Because we fight for something beyond bloodlust. We fight for our children, our homes, and yes, even for a future where your cubs might grow into more than just weapons. That's why your empire crumbles at every clash. The Krolak delegate rumbled in a deep, gravelly voice. And you would claim, mercy is why you endure. Grant turned toward him. Not mercy alone. Mercy combined with resolve. Compassion balanced with steel. You mistake kindness for weakness. But humanity's mercy is not unconditional. It is earned. It is given when it serves life. And when denied, when met with cruelty, we fight harder than any in this galaxy. Telen spoke again, her coils tightening. A doctrine of balance. Mercy where possible, destruction where necessary, dangerous, and unpredictable. That unpredictability, another delegate whispered, terrifies me more than any weapon they possess. The council chamber grew tense again, the divide widening. Some were visibly moved by Grant's words, considering humanity not as naive, but as dangerously unconventional. Others bristled, unwilling to abandon centuries of blood doctrine. Vedic rose to his full, towering height, voiced booming. You cannot change the truth of the galaxy, human. The strong devour the weak. The helpless are culled. That is order. That is survival. Grant took a step forward, his voice cold now. No, that is cowardice dressed as order. Any brute can kill the defenseless. True strength is protecting them. Humanity has done both. We have fought predators like you, and we have carried our young, and sometimes even our enemies' young, through fire. Which do you think takes more strength? The words struck harder than weapons fire. For the first time, a crack showed in the council's unified face. Some nodded slightly, others looked away, unwilling to confront the question. Vedic's claws screeched against the table, his fury palpable. I will hear no more of this blasphemy. You speak poison into this chamber, human. You corrupt even the council with your lies. Shurakai do not bow to weakness, and I will not bow to you. He turned sharply, as if to storm from the chamber, but Grant's final words halted him mid-step. Walk away, Strategos. But know this, the galaxy just heard something it can never forget. The doctrine of mercy is loose among your enemies now, and that idea is far more dangerous than any human fleet. The chamber held its breath. The cubs stirred softly in their cradle, one stretching a tiny paw, as if reaching toward the very warlord who sought to dismiss them. The sight was almost unbearable. Even Veric, for a heartbeat, faltered. Then the moment passed. He snarled, turning his back. But his retreat carried less certainty than before. And the council knew. The clash of doctrines had only just begun. The chamber had become a fault line, every delegate standing on one side or the other, waiting for the first tremor to split it apart. Admiral Elias Grant remained at the center, calm as a stone in the current. The Shurakai cubs rested in the heated cradle beside him, their soft breathing audible in the pauses between arguments. Their presence was a quiet, stubborn reminder that innocence still existed, even in war. Strategos Veric could no longer sit. He paced like a predator trapped in a cage, his war armor clattering with each step. His tusks gleamed in the light, his every motion brimming with restrained violence. You insult me in my own council, he roared. You twist weakness into a sermon and expect us to kneel before it? Grant's reply was measured, but unyielding. Not kneel. Listen. Telen flicked her tongue, testing the air. Admiral, you realize what you propose unsettles the very foundation of this council. If mercy is strength, if children are sacrosanct, then every empire here must answer for blood spilt. That's the point, Grant said. If we can't draw that line, then this chamber is nothing more than a marketplace for butchery. The word hung there. Butchery. And more than one delegate flinched. Veric slammed a claw onto the cradle's rim. The cubs stirred, mewling in protest. Instantly, Grant's hand closed around the warlord's wrist, Firm but not brutal. His eyes narrowed. Touch them again, and you'll learn the difference between restraint and violence firsthand. The chamber froze, Vedic's tusks spread in a grim smile, as if daring the human to strike. You would kill me before the council? Grant's grip tightened just enough to convey certainty. Not unless you force me. But don't mistake mercy for hesitation. Vedic snarled, ripping his arm free. The gesture left the chamber reeling. Few had ever seen someone stand toe-to-toe with a Puantintin, a Shurakai warlord, and not flinch. Enough of this farce! Vedic bellowed, striding back to his seat. The Shurakai will not be bound by your delusions. We reject your ceasefire. We reject your council. War will continue until Earth is ash. The declaration dropped like a stone. Whispers erupted, fearful, calculating. Several species had no desire to see the conflict reignited at full scale. Others welcomed the bloodshed if it weakened both sides. The chamber threatened to collapse into chaos. Grant raised his voice, not with anger, but with command. If you choose war, then know this. Humanity will not only fight back, we will intervene. Every time your fleets slaughter civilians, every time your soldiers burn colonies, we will stand in the fire and we will take your young from it, not to harm them, to protect them. The council erupted, a wave of disbelief crashing against his words. You would steal their children? Hissed the crystalline delegate, horrified. You would claim responsibility for what you did not birth? Gasped another. Telen's scales rattled in agitation. You propose a guardianship beyond species. Impossible. Dangerous. Grant's eyes scanned the chamber, his expression grave. Dangerous, yes. Necessary, yes. If the Shurakai insist on turning their children into weapons, then humanity will break the cycle. Not with fleets. With care. Vayric's roar drowned every other voice. Blasphemy! You would dare take what is ours? You would corrupt them, warp them into humans in all but flesh? Grant's voice sharpened, steel beneath the calm. I would teach them what you never did, that they don't have to be monsters. The chamber trembled with the weight of it. For the first time in living memory, the Galactic War Council saw a doctrine that could not be countered with ships or claws. The idea of humanity claiming guardianship over another species' children, an empire of protectors instead of predators, was a weapon no fleet could match. Delen's voice rose above the din, conflicted but earnest. If humanity does this, then you reshape the balance of power. Empires built on fear cannot endure if mercy becomes the greater strength. This could fracture us all. That fracture, Grant said firmly, is already here. The words silenced the room. Every delegate realized it. Sides had already been chosen, not by treaties, but by belief. Some were drawn to humanity's doctrine, others recoiled from it. Vedic slammed his fist down one last time, cracking the council table itself. Then let fracture come. Better war than corruption. Better fire than your poisoned mercy. Grant stepped closer, his shadow falling across the broken table. His voice was low, but it carried to every corner. Then hear my final word, strategos. If the Shurakai continue to slaughter their young, or anyone's young, humanity will act. Not as conquerors, not as executioners, as guardians. And we do not surrender what we protect. Gasps echoed. For a heartbeat, even the translators faltered. One delegate whispered, almost reverently, Guardians? Another trembling. Do you realize what they are claiming? Dominion not through conquest, but through nurture. It is unthinkable. Beric snarled, but for the first time, his certainty faltered. A seed of doubt flickered in the warlord's eyes, quickly buried beneath rage. He stood abruptly, signaling his withdrawal. Then we are done here. Humanity has sealed its fate. The Shurakai will bring endless night to your fragile world. He stormed from the chamber, armor clanging like war drums. His entourage followed, leaving silence in his wake. Telen finally spoke, her tone unreadable. Admiral Grant, do you understand what you've done? The warlord will burn half the galaxy to resist your doctrine. Grant looked down at the cubs, who had fallen asleep despite the uproar. His expression softened. Then we'll be ready. Humanity has fought worse odds before. And if we must fight again, we'll fight for something greater than victory. We'll fight for a future worth surviving. The chamber was split, fragile, trembling. Some delegates leaned toward Grant's vision with reluctant admiration. Others recoiled, plotting already. The fracture was real. And in that fracture, humanity had found its leverage. The breaking point had been reached. The next clash would decide whether the galaxy embraced a new order or drowned in old blood. The War Council chamber, vast and ringed with cold steel, was never meant for silence. Yet now it was so still, so fragile, that even the soft suckling noises of the cubs in Admiral Kira Hale's arms seemed deafening. 1,000 eyes fixed on her, predators, politicians, and generals who had once vowed to burn Earth to ash. They had expected threats, ultimatums, or weapons. Instead, the human admiral held 2 enemy cubs as though they were her own. For the Council, this was impossible. For Kira, it was inevitable. A fractured assembly. General Threx of the Vorthak finally broke the silence. His voice carried the gravel of countless battlefields. "Admiral Hale," he rasped, mandibles clicking. "You mock us with this display. You dare bring prey before predators and call it strategy?" Kira didn't flinch. She gently shifted one cub, who pawed sleepily at her uniform insignia. "No," she said evenly. "I bring you a mirror. You see prey. I see children. And if you still think they deserve to be crushed under your wars, then say it out loud, before your own council." A ripple moved through the assembly. Some members shifted uncomfortably. Others growled. And a few, dangerously few, leaned forward, curiosity flickering in their alien eyes. A test of resolve. Councillor Arvex of the Shuon, a serpentine species whose coils could strangle a war beast, hissed across the chamber. "You are here to negotiate surrender, not parade a sentimentality." Kira stood, the cups still in her arms. Her voice carried, not with volume, but with precision. "Surrender? You misunderstand. Humanity doesn't kneel. We don't grovel. But neither do we wage endless slaughter. What I offer is not weakness. It is an ultimatum, disguised as mercy." That word, mercy, hung in the air like a weapon no one had prepared for. The crack appears. The cubs stirred, and one gave a small cry. A council aide instinct. Tivoli moved to take it, but Kira's firm shake of the head stopped him cold. She looked around, meeting alien eyes one by one. "I was on the front lines when your fleets glassed civilian stations. I saw what was left after your victories. You call this war honor. I call it cowardice. And yet," she lifted the cup slightly, "here they are, alive, because my soldiers carried them out of the fire while yours turned away." Silence again, but it was a different kind of silence, the kind that unsettled, the kind that broke foundations. The antagonist's breaking point. Councillor Vorath, who had orchestrated half the campaigns against humanity, snarled, slamming his claw against the obsidian table. "Do not be deceived. This is manipulation. These humans wield pity as a weapon. They make you feel shame, so you forget your instincts." Kira turned her full attention on him. "You're right." That made him freeze. "We do wield pity. We do wield shame. Because they are sharper than your fleets, heavier than your bombardments, and longer lasting than your victories. You burn colonies. We save cubs. And when history remembers this war, it will not be your name they speak with fear. It will be ours. Because you will not know what to do with an enemy who refuses to become a monster." Vorath tried to retort, but the chamber was no longer his. The vote that changed everything. Emotion stirred among the neutral factions. Councillor Relin of the Veyari, a species renowned for neutrality, finally stood. I have fought humans. I have watched them dismantle fleets I thought invincible. Yet, this? She gestured toward the Admiral and the cubs. This terrifies me more, for they are not only warriors, they are guardians, and a guardian cannot be conquered. The council erupted in overlapping voices, some demanding war, others whispering ceasefire. For the first time, victory seemed less about weapons and more about morality. Kira's final gambit. Kira stepped forward, placing the cubs gently into a carrier beside her. Her eyes swept the chamber one last time. This is your chance. End this war. Not because you fear us, not because you love us, but because you've realized that if you continue, every cub, every child, every innocent, on both sides, will look back and see you as the monsters who couldn't stop. She paused, her voice hardening. But know this, if you choose to continue, we will not bottle feed mercy forever. Aftermath, the War Council voted that night. Not a surrender, not a treaty, but something new. An armistice born of shame, fear, and a reluctant respect that would reshape the galaxy. As the assembly adjourned, Kira gathered the cubs once more. They clung to her uniform, unaware of the history written in their cries. General Trex lingered near her as the chamber emptied. "Admiral," he said slowly, "you've done what no weapon could. You've made predators doubt their hunger." Kira allowed herself the faintest smile. "Then perhaps," she murmured, "we all have a chance at survival." Closing note. And so it was that the War Council, feared across the stars, froze at the sight of a human admiral bottle-feeding enemy cubs. A single act of mercy unraveled centuries of blood and dominance, leaving every species to wonder what was more dangerous, humanity's weapons or humanity's compassion. End of story. If you enjoyed this story and want more tales of humanity's place among the stars, subscribe to the Void Narratives and join the fleet of readers who know that mercy can be deadlier than war.